So, Dr. James Ellis, a pleasure to be with you in person here. I have so many things I want to talk to you about. At the Celebrations Pulse, we write about, and on a podcast, we talk a lot about loneliness. And who knew that I knew the loneliness expert? How did your career path take you, and what curiosity inside you caused you to become so expert in a subject that I think is so important?
Well, I've been a clinical psychologist for 20 years now, and
Started when you were 10?
yeah, around then. Actually, a second career for me. I was in theater for some time. I didn't go back to college till I was 25.
No kidding.
Yeah. So it is a second career.
And I used to have a fellow who was Lisa, my chief of staff before Lisa, several years ago, and he was in the theater for about 15 years before he grew up and went into business. He looked a lot like you.
Oh, really?
He did a terrific job. He's a wonderful young man.
I think an arts background really helps people excel in various disciplines.
You know where it's
different
helped
ways.
us in our business? In training our people in customer service.
Yes.
We deliberately hire people with theater, particularly theater education backgrounds. And I remember this one young man in particular, he was in the theater program at Hofstra. He would take a class of people we were training for customer service, and he said, "You may not be a nice person, but Don, we're going to teach you to fake it like you really are." And he really had their attention from the get-go. But the theater techniques that he taught was how to overcome your own shyness, your own inhibition.
Yes. I think I gravitated towards it in some respect.
Were you shy?
I wouldn't say I was shy, but I was socially anxious. Yes. I felt kind of on the outskirts of the socially acceptable groups at school and would sometimes get made fun of, things. So I think it was a way of reclaiming power. I saw someone do a play in middle school, and they just looked so confident, and they had everyone's eyes on them, and they had respect. And I thought, if I could learn more about what they're doing up there, I might be able to be more socially confident, more likable, more included, more fun.
That's really interesting. A couple of months ago, my wife and I went to our grandson's middle school play. They did Newsies. And frankly, I wasn't familiar with the Newsies franchise.
Okay.
But I was amazed at what these couple of young women teachers did with, looked to me like 60 kids in putting on this production. And we saw it the last production of their run. They did Thursday, Friday, 2 on Saturday. And we went for Saturday night. And I was blown away by, of course, seeing my grandson on stage, who's a shy kid, and seeing him overcome that. This is something he decided to do on his own. His parents didn't say, "Why don't you do this?" He decided with a couple of friends, let's go try this. He got a speaking part in the play, not a big part, but a part. And I was so proud of him that he overcame his natural shyness to want to do this, did it on his own, and did terrific. So much so that I think, in addition to be able to graduate from high school, I think you should have a second language.
Yes.
Technology, computer skills, and have done something in the theater. It might be in front of on the stage, or it might be in support. But that whole milieu.
Yeah, the milieu, the ensemble.
Yes, I think is terrific developmental skills.
It really is. Yeah. And it's an incredible relational experience because you start to understand the dynamics of all different types of people, their role, how everything comes together, how to interact with them in ways that are to the benefit of you and your purpose, but also the purpose of the group. Certain responsibilities like showing up on time. I'll never forget being away at an performing arts summer camp. I think it was the summer after my 8th or 9th grade year. And I showed up to a rehearsal 5 minutes late. And I got chewed out like I have never been chewed out before.
By your peers or by the
director? By the director, yes. And I think she probably chewed me out because I was a little too nonchalant about it. And I said something like, it's only 5 minutes. And she was like, yeah, you wasted your 5 minutes, my 5 minutes, her 5 minutes, collectively, you wasted about 75 minutes of time.
Boy, it stuck with you.
Stuck with me to this day. Yeah, I'll never, I remember the room.
So you go to LIU, you get your PhD, and you get into private practice right away? Or?
No, I didn't work in private practice right away. I worked in just about every hospital in the metropolitan area.
Yeah.
And I ended up doing additional training in family and couples therapy. I'm really a relational psychologist, whether I'm working with an individual, with a couple, with a family, with an organization. And so I think the essence of that is that I think relationships are the bedrock of our evolution in a lot of ways. We have needed to couple up romantically. We've needed to build families. We've needed to be parts of tribes for our survival for millennia. It's only a blip on the continuum of human existence that we can actually survive a very long life alone in a studio apartment, ordering DoorDash, having all of our needs met without anyone else, really.
That's so interesting to look at it from a historical perspective and on a continuum.
Yeah.
How things are so different now.
And our psychology hasn't caught up with that reality, that we actually can live alone. When we are alone too much, whether
Speak for yourself, not me.
Not you?
No.
No? You can be monastic?
No, I could not.
You could not, right?
No. I'm a social creature.
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah. I think it operates, very few people can actually be a hermit and be healthy. And we know that there's copious amounts of scientific research now looking at how it affects us physiologically, cardiology, vascularly. Both our physical health and our mental health are dependent on our social health. So that's one of the assumptions that I work from, and I always have. But I didn't, in the beginning of my career, notice how loneliness was impacting people's mental health. I wasn't actually trained to. It wasn't part of our training. It was seen as something that is secondary, a symptom of something like depression, a symptom of something like...
not causal.
Not causal, no. And through many years of working with thousands of people, I started to notice that I was doing the best practices that are known to have good outcomes. My patients were showing up, working very hard, doing what I was asking of them, and some of them weren't getting better. Some did.
Yep.
I think those who...
Some didn't, though.
Yeah, those who were socially connected and had a richer social world. But those who...
And so from your patient care, you saw that thread of those who weren't getting better.
Yes.
Didn't have the social network that those who were getting better had.
Yes, exactly. And so I started to realize I have to address this head on. I have to prescribe social activities. I have to get them to, gain awareness into the ways in which their social isolation or loneliness is operating on their mental and sometimes physical health. And we see this a lot in New York. My practice has been, in Midtown Manhattan for the last 15 years.
Where there's a lot of lonely people in a crowd.
A lot of lonely people in the crowd. A lot of people who are doing all the things that they were told to do in life, to excel academically, to get into a great college, to get into a great graduate or professional school, to take all the best internships, to really check. And then they come here for some wonderful opportunity and they live in a studio in Hoboken or Astoria and they work 12 hours a day and they wonder why they're anxious or they wonder why they're depressed because they've been doing everything right.
It seems to me if you look at that historical timeline, we lived in tribes and we had our different roles. There was an article I read in December of 19, and I refer to it all the time. Two young editors at the Washington Bureau of the Wall Street Journal wrote an article that I reread every few months called Boomers, the Loneliest Generation. And they posited, and I agreed, that my boomer generation, was the first generation post-World War II that did a few things. Embraced divorce in large numbers.
Yes. Became
diabetic, so therefore unhealthy in large number in percentage terms. Who didn't live with multi-generational families and would move to the other side of the country because California is cool. And I separate myself from my family and my social network and my school network at all, voluntarily. Or moved to Colorado for work. And now I'm separated. Oh, and by the way, we're living longer.
Yeah.
So we live longer. We're not as healthy. We outlive our money sometimes. We're estranged from our family because of a divorce. And wow, we surprised that we're lonely. I would argue that successive generations have tried to outdo the boomers in terms of loneliness.
Indeed, precisely.
But it was those consequences of where I grew up. I grew up in Queens, South Queens. I would say more than half the homes on the block that I lived on were multi-generational.
Yeah.
I didn't know of anyone in a nursing home.
Yeah.
I didn't know anyone who lived in a 55-plus community because there weren't any.
Mm-hmm.
And I think all of those things, to your point, contribute to what I think is an epidemic of loneliness.
That's right. Loneliness has been around since the dawn of time. Loneliness is a signal in our body saying we need connection. We need more people, or our connections are at risk in some way. Insufficient. Yeah, they need to be nurtured. Otherwise, we're toast. So it implores us to behave and interact in different ways. But the modern loneliness epidemic is a whole different context.
In what way?
What you just said. And it's interesting that you think about it in terms of boomers, because as someone from Gen X, I thought it started with me.
It's self-centered. I don't care about you.
I thought it started with our generation, but you're right. And I did always...
But each generation has had a different layer of reasons why loneliness is becoming more of an issue.
That's right. That's right.
Social media certainly didn't affect my generation.
I think it started with declining birth rates.
Yes.
I come from a family most of my family is out of Kentucky, but some crossed the river.
I noticed your playlist was all banjo music.
My playlist? You saw my playlist? I do like country music as I get older, I have to say. But
same upbringing, not upbringing, but same geography as our Vice President, J.D. Vance.
That's right. Oh, yeah. And I remember my mother reading Hillbilly Elegy.
Good book.
How long? Yeah, 15, 16, 17 years ago, and saying, this is our family.
Yeah.
She said, you have to read it. It's our family. Kentucky moved from the rural areas for jobs in steel and the factories. And then what I was going to say is my great grandmother, who died when I was 17, had 20 pregnancies.
Wow.
20 pregnant. I think born in 1903. Died in the 90s, and had 20 pregnancies. I think 11 children survived childbirth, and early childhood.
How many siblings do you have?
I only have 2. So my mom, my grandma was one of 10 or 11. Then my mom is one of 7, and then my brother and I are just 2 of us, and then we each only have 1 child. And that's not an uncommon story. That's not an uncommon trajectory, that our herds have thinned.
Work you might do with people who get older. I have a lot of senior friends. And one of the things I hear from them, and my wife and I have had this discussion a lot lately, especially, that we're conscious of the fact that we have to replenish our social network. We lose friends to health, death, divorce, and geography. And if you're not conscious of it, your network will shrink.
That's right.
So I'll go back to something else you said and ask you a question. With that in mind, don't you think the whole idea of retirement is being reconsidered? What is retirement?
Absolutely.
Who should retire? Why do you retire?
Absolutely. One of the most interesting experiences in my clinical training, actually, I did a fellowship at the Addictions Institute of New York. So my fellowship is actually in addiction psychology. And one of the groups I was assigned was a twice-weekly group for those who were 60 and over. That was the entrance criteria, and it was at the Addictions Institute. So people there were in various stages of addiction or recovery.
Yeah.
Yes, as some actively using, some moderating, some abstinent, but they came together twice a week to talk in a group that I facilitated for an hour and a half.
That must have been fascinating.
And what really fascinated me, Jim, was that these were not people who necessarily struggled with addiction their whole life. I had a photographer who was an incredible fashion photographer who just didn't quite keep up with the digital revolution. And he was kind of defined out of his career and ultimately his identity by
changes in
technology. So he kind of went the way of the dinosaurs and really was impacted emotionally. One glass of wine turned into two, turned into a bottle. And the next thing he knew, he had a problem. And there were so many, and lots of retirement, lots of children who had moved away, divorced men in particular. But these were people who, by and large, had never experienced addiction before until
later in life. Huh?
They were caught off guard by not having a sense of purpose or mattering.
Knocked off their perch by some life circumstance.
Yeah. And I'm thinking about you and your wife.
Loss?
Sometimes losses. Yeah, sometimes losses. But I'm thinking about you and your wife who have actually stayed rooted in large part. You're where you've always been, in the same metro area.
She migrated all the way from Western Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay. The same metro area. Your children are here. Your grandchildren are here. This is wonderful. You have a lot of connection.
I think we're living the dream.
You're living the dream, and still, you notice that it's getting harder to stay socially enriched.
I think we have to be deliberate. If we're not conscious of and deliberate about nurturing relationships, working our garden of relationships, it'll get thin.
That's right.
And, we have lovely friends who we've known for 30, 40 years. Oh, we're retiring to Florida. We're going to the East Coast. Well, we have a home on the West Coast. We're not going to see them very often.
No.
Once, twice a year, maybe. And then a year goes by because they weren't in good health when we were on the East Coast that time. All of a sudden, gaps grow. I have a very good friend who's in his 90s, and we were together last year playing golf, and he's in good health, and he's a wonderful man. Lost his wife 3 years ago, and he said to me, Jim, one of the things that sucks about getting old. I said, well, what sucks about getting old? He goes, you can get lonely because you outlive your friends.
Yeah.
And he's fortunate because he's of means, and he belongs to clubs both here and in New York. He said, but it's not the same thing. Those casual kinds of encounters, he said, aren't the same thing as the buddy you were friends with for 40 years who knew what you were thinking before you said anything.
That's right.
There's nothing sweeter than a summer bursting with fun and flavor. Make a big splash at your pool party with fresh fruit from Harry and David.
Our community has heard me say many, many times that some of my best friends are people who've gone through 12-step programs. And they also know that I've said this a few times. I have a fellow I know and think very highly of who runs an addiction treatment center, and he'd never had an issue himself. But he said this when I said that comment to him about some of my best friends, or some of the best friends and the people I most respect. He said, I feel exactly the same way. He said, but you and I just don't want to have to go through all that nonsense, all that pain to get there.
Yeah.
But so what lessons would you take in your treatment practice? And I see in your social media posts the wonderful tips and ideas that you share with your community. Share with us, based on that premise, that people who've gone through a 12-step program, understanding themselves, understanding their path, understanding what's in their control and what's not in their control, shedding the burdens of their own self-criticism and making amends and being deliberate about staying in connection. The group meetings, being able to take a meeting all the time, being able to let your hair down. Don't make any hair jokes, please. What lessons can we take from that? Do you take from that in your treatment plans to help people with their issues besides addiction?
I think one of the most important things about 12-step, and it's really amazing that it's been around since the 20s, it's a really long-standing treatment approach. And
that's what it is, right?
What?
A treatment approach.
I consider it to be. It's an intervention.
Yes.
Modality. And
it's prescriptive.
It is. And in my opinion, the bedrock is not only the 12 steps,
it's the social.
The fellowship, absolutely. And that's one of the things we know, and I do emphasize in the content that I put out there, is that we heal in relationships. I think one of the detriments of this very individualistic society that we live in is everything when it comes to mental health, you've probably heard it too, is a new breathing technique you can try, a meditation, a new even medication. There's lots of medications you can try if you're experiencing mental anguish. There's all different sorts of online programs that you can do for yourself. No one ever says, why don't you take that pain, identify it, and turn to the person next to you and talk about it. We don't really live in that type of culture where people are advocating. And as a matter of fact, some of the messages are very detrimental. They're saying, don't get married or date anyone until you really have yourself figured out first.
Which is such nonsense.
Such nonsense.
I grew up with my wife.
Yeah.
Not literally. I mean, I grew up as an adult with her.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm still growing, I hope.
Right. Likewise, me too. Absolutely. We grow in relationships. Absolutely.
So, what role do you see in faith in terms of your treatment when you're treating patients? When there's a good foundation of faith, is that different? Are you conscious of that? Are you probing for that in order to find the best path to help them?
It can be, and it depends. I had patients who have come from a strong faith background for whom they identify that as a great source of distress, and also a great source of comfort. And I think that for me, one of the most important aspects of this question is the way in which it counterbalances the highly individualistic of the universe. And we're raised to be so. To be a good parent means to have your child identify what is their favorite thing, what are they excelling at, and to really show up and nurture them. And as a matter of fact, that's a relatively new prescription of parents.
My generation, children were meant to be seen and not heard.
Seen, not heard. Yeah, I always say it's so interesting that I knew my great-grandmother, who was born in 1903. Some of her children didn't survive. I think, for a long time, that was really the goal, to get your babies to survive. And then if they did survive, it was to be a moral person.
And productive.
Right in God's eyes, right in the community's eyes. And then all of a sudden, happiness became the focus. I need my child to be happy. I need them to find what it is they love.
And credentialed.
Credentialed, yes, because that's the winning ticket. And so...
Okay, let's take that back a bit. My parents' generation, the greatest generation.
Yeah.
The idea of my father or his brothers or anyone I knew in that generation, that they would say, geez, I'm having a hard time here. I'm really experiencing anxiety. It was shut your mouth, do your job, and get on with it.
Right.
That seemed... Was there as much anxiety then?
That's the fascinating thing, is how much anxiety we are seeing right now.
Is it more now?
Way more. Jim, it's off the charts, and it just keeps getting worse. It's really crazy how the more individualistic we become, the less obligations outside of the self a child is raised with, the more support they have from their parents and from their community, the less adversity they experience, the more that they see themselves as the center of the universe, the more pressure they have, and the more they're buckling under the pressure, and they have no resilience.
Yeah. Tell me how we migrated from the greatest generation to boomers to today, where men didn't express their feelings. Lots of times we're quite stoic.
That's right.
Don't talk about the war.
That's right.
Don't talk about what you did. They were the quiet types at the head of the table, the disciplinarians. And now we've evolved to, we're all expressing how we're having a difficulty, we're having anxiety, we're feeling lonely.
Yeah.
Can you imagine someone in my parents' generation saying, I'm lonely?
Right.
Ostracized.
Right.
They're weird.
Or any feeling. I don't know if my wife loves me anymore. Anything that's vulnerable. Just imagine turning to another man and talking about it. They just didn't talk about it, so they suffered in silence. There was a lot of loneliness. Yeah.
And I guess that manifests itself in high degrees of quiet depression and alcoholism.
Yeah. Anything that's repressive in nature. Yeah. Yeah. And that's definitely something I see in my work, Jim, that I think is a positive, is that men are getting more in touch with their emotions and also articulating it and
Willingness to articulate it.
willing to articulate it and finding relationships with other men even where that can be expressed.
Oh, let's pull on that a little bit. Relationships with other men. I think one of the big challenges of our time is adult male relationships. It's critically important to me, and I'm very deliberate about it. And this is a case where social media aids and abets me in pursuit of relationships, because now I could have several different text strings of clusters of friends with different interests, different relationships, and we can share things. And it makes me feel more connected to them, even though it may have been quite some time since we've been together in person. Talk to me about your practice, what you're seeing in your communities, and is it the case that adult male relationships are as important as I perceive?
I think they're absolutely, unquestionably as important, but there's still room to grow where all men have access to that. All men understand the importance of it. All men develop experience talking about things other than sports and finding relationships where that feels appropriate. It's not as pervasive as it needs to be, but it's gotten a whole lot better.
Has it?
And I see it actually chronologically with age. The younger a man is, the more
likely.
Yeah, but even still, a lot of my patients are men. A lot of men want to see a male therapist, and 80% of therapists are now women.
Is that right?
Yeah. The mental health field is dominated by women now. So
I'm not surprised, but 80% surprises me.
80%. So oftentimes men seek out another male therapist. So a lot of my clientele are men. And it's one of the things that I hear a lot when I'm talking to a man is, I'm saying this for the first time, or I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. I've never said this before to anyone. And I never hear a woman say that. As a matter of fact, I know that most of the women who are telling me sometimes deeply vulnerable things have told 5 of their girlfriends already.
Well, that's why I distinguish between adult relationships when I talk about adult male relationships, because it seems to me women more naturally or comfortably develop a network of friends.
They sure do.
And maintain a network of friends, whereas men are going to be more stoic, especially as we get older, especially as our career ends. And all of a sudden you haven't put those bricks in place for the future, and now your work life stops, and now you're home with your spouse, if you're fortunate enough to still have one.
Right.
And you haven't made plans to have a social life.
Right. And I think you're right that it's in large part been held by work, and then domestically, the wife is usually the one who's initiating everything socially. And then,
you give a lot of advice about don't be embarrassed about being the convener or the host.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that. I think that your advice there is so good.
Well, I'm not sure which exact advice you're responding.
You in some of your correspondence, you were talking about someone saying, well, I'm the one that seems to be organizing things all the time.
Yes. That was a myth that was just so pervasive when I started understanding the importance of a social network and social health. And I would ask people who they have in their life, and they would name people. They would name plenty of people, relatives, friends, former coworkers, neighbors. And I said, well, why aren't you seeing these people? And invariably they would
haven't
say,
called.
Yeah, I'm always the one who reaches out.
Good.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought, well, so what? And still, do you know, I think I reposted a video about that just a few days ago. And it is so controversial, Jim, every time I post it, because the other buzzword that people are hearing is reciprocity. Healthy relationships have reciprocity. And I agree with that statement, but some people get very concrete and think that it must mean
I did
every
this
dimension.
Time, now it's their turn.
Yes.
And I'm going to be right and lonely.
Yeah. So I mentioned in my stories, because I felt like I needed to give more nuance, I have a very good friend who has been a dear friend for 17 years, and she's impossible to connect with sometimes. I mean, I really actually work quite hard to try to meet up with her. Actually, thought about texting her because I walked by her building today on the way here. But she's someone who is very difficult and will never initiate. Never initiate. I always have to do that work. But when we finally connect and show up, she brings such presence more than anyone else in my life. Truly, she's someone who is so supportive, brings her intellect, her heart, and is just so present with me that you can't tell me it's not worth it to keep texting her and to keep arranging meetings with her.
If we do nothing else, let's probe on that behavior.
Yeah.
How do you get over the feelings that you've had with her and say, well, wait a minute, it's gone 6 months, I haven't heard a word from her. Or I've written to her 11 times and she hasn't written back.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say to yourself about
it's a good question.
Her and the nature of that relationship, because you've decided that she's an important enough relationship that you'll eat that.
Yeah. There were times when I didn't understand our relationship as well, where I thought, we have such a good time together, and we enjoy.
What's it about me? She's not getting back to me.
Yeah, so there were ways in which it didn't make sense. The math didn't add up, and maybe I had some feelings about it. But what I did is I zoomed the camera lens out to the broader dimensions of our relationship, and I thought, well, you know what? We always do end up getting together.
There are some people who are just like that.
There's some people who are just like that, and I actually think in her
and
particular
you have the
case,
strength.
Yeah,
you have the strength to say, I can live with that.
I can live with it.
I compartmentalize it. I get it.
Yeah.
Because it's worth it to me to go through that because of the richness of community of friends I want to have.
That's right. That's right. It makes sense when you zoom out and you don't think about it so concretely.
Or personally.
You depersonalize it. As a matter of fact, with her, one of the things I think is she's so present with whatever's right in front of her that these types of things don't occur to her to reach out.
Now, we talked about my parents' generation, and they were a lot less affluent than everybody is today. And there was a meat and potatoes kind of environment. They went to work, they came home, they raised their kids. Now, fast forward, a friend of ours, Dr. Judith Joseph, wrote a book about high performers living with high anxiety, the invisible anxiety. She said, as you move up the pyramid of professional accomplishment, your network naturally tends to narrow. And she thinks there are a whole lot of people who look extremely successful in their careers walking around suffering from anxiety and loneliness in the quiet.
It is lonely at the top, for sure. And I see this all the time. So many of my patients are big New York City executives. And they have to interact in a different way when they're in the office. They have to interact differently with the people that they're around. They don't know why someone wants to be around them. What is their motivation?
What is their motivation? What do they want?
Right. Yeah. There's so much to juggle there, and I think it's unfortunate that people don't understand that a lot of the time.
So, what do you do with those patients? How do you help them?
The other thing, I think, the way that I help them the most is helping them understand that this is even operating on them. Because they're so programmed sometimes to see the accomplishments as the end zone that they say, I've made it. I'm in the end zone. How could this be an issue? This is small potatoes.
Yeah, what's wrong with me that I'm not feeling completely accomplished?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I so applaud the work you're doing, Dr. James Ellis. I think it's important. I imagine you're terrific at what you do. I see how you help a lot of people through your social media posts at all. If someone wanted to get in touch with you and said, hey, that Dr. James Ellis sounds like a terrific guy, how do I get in touch with him?
Loneliness Doctor on Instagram.
Loneliness Doctor on Instagram.
Yeah, that's my Instagram handle.
Yeah, good. Well, I think you can help a lot more people, and I look forward to helping getting your message out.
I appreciate it.
Thanks, Doc.
Thanks, Jim.